a brilliant surgeon, hiding as a janitor to protect his daughter, crosses paths with a ruthless CEO whose empire is crumbling, and when their worlds collide in a moment of crisis, both discover that the wounds they've been hiding might be the only things that can save them. The Aurelia Hotel rooftop gleamed like a crown jewel against the twilight sky of Manhattan. Crystal chandeliers refracted light across marble floors where the city's elite gathered for the annual Metropolitan Children's Charity Gala, a $10,000 per-plate event where corporations bought conscience and influence in equal measure. Dr. Marcus Chen, though no one here knew that name, pushed a maintenance cart through the service entrance, his daughter Lily's small hand tucked into his. At 7 years old, she wore her nicest dress, a yellow sundress from Target, that her father had ironed 3 times that morning. Her eyes widened at the spectacle. "Papa, it's like a castle," she whispered, her accent carrying the faintest trace of Mandarin. Marcus smiled, the expression not quite reaching his eyes that had seen too much, saved too many, lost everything. "Will only be a minute, sweetheart. I just need to fix the sound system." He wore the gray uniform of Aurelia Hotel maintenance staff, a name tag reading Mark pinned to his chest. His hands, steady hands that had once performed microsurgery on infants' hearts, now carried a toolbox. "Mr. Chen?" A flustered event coordinator rushed over. "Thank God. The microphone keeps cutting out, and Miss Thorne is about to speak. She's already displeased." Marcus nodded, already moving toward the stage. "I'll have it working in 5 minutes. Make it 3. When Victoria Thorne is unhappy, everyone suffers." The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Victoria Thorne entered the rooftop terrace as if she were annexing territory. At 34, she was the youngest CEO in Apex Pharmaceuticals' 80-year history. A woman who had clawed her way up through 16-hour days and zero tolerance for weakness, her own or anyone else's. She wore a black Armani gown that looked like weaponized elegance. Her dark hair pulled back so severely, it could have been a declaration of war. Her assistant, Marcus noticed from the corner of his eye, practically trembled while holding her tablet. "The microphone better work," Victoria said, her voice cold enough to frost glass. "I don't repeat myself." Marcus was crouched behind the podium, his daughter sitting quietly nearby, when Victoria's Louboutins appeared in his peripheral vision. "How much longer?" she demanded. 30 seconds, ma'am." He didn't look up, just kept his hands moving through the wiring. That's when Lily, bless her fearless heart, looked up at Victoria Thorne and smiled. "You're very pretty, like a princess, but princesses usually smile more." The entire terrace seemed to hold its breath. Marcus's hands froze. "Lily." But Victoria had stopped, actually stopped, looking down at this child in a Target dress who had just spoken to her like a human being. Something flickered across her face. Confusion? Surprise? It was gone before Marcus could identify it. "Princesses," Victoria said slowly, as if testing the word, "have responsibilities that don't allow for smiling." "That sounds lonely," Lily replied, with the brutal honesty of childhood. Marcus stood quickly, stepping between them. "I apologize, Miss Thorne. We'll be out of your way immediately. The microphone is working now." For 3 seconds, Marcus counted them. Victoria Thorne looked at him directly. Her eyes were gray, storm cloud gray, and utterly devoid of warmth. But there was something else there, buried deep. A flicker of something human, struggling beneath glacial ice. "See that you are," she said, then swept away toward the podium. Marcus gathered his tools, took Lily's hand. But his daughter was still watching Victoria with that peculiar intensity children have when they sense wounded things. Papa, Lily whispered as they headed toward the exit. Why is she so sad? What makes you think she's sad? Her eyes, they look like yours did, before. Marcus's chest tightened. Before the hospital, before the lawsuit, before Sarah, before everything shattered. Victoria Thorne's voice cut through the charity gala like a scalpel through flesh. Precise, controlled, devastating in its efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, Apex Pharmaceuticals has donated $15 million to pediatric research this year. Not because we're philanthropists, because sick children are bad for quarterly earnings. Healthy children grow into healthy consumers. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus, who had been trying to leave quietly with Lily, found himself stopped by the sheer audacity of her honesty. You want to feel good about your donations? Fine. But let's not pretend this is about compassion. This is about tax write-offs and public image. I didn't become CEO by lying to myself, and I won't lie to you. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd with something like contempt. Children deserve better than our performative charity. They deserve a world where healthcare isn't contingent on their parents' net worth. Until we build that world, these galas are just expensive theater. The applause was confused, scattered. Half the room didn't know whether to be offended or impressed. Marcus did something he hadn't done in months. He smiled, genuinely. This woman, this ice-cold corporate warrior, had just told an entire room of billionaires that their charity was bullshit. And she was right. Lily tugged his hand. Papa, I like her. She tells the truth. Yes, Marcus murmured, she does. They were almost to the service door when it happened. Lily, distracted by the city lights visible beyond the terrace edge, didn't see the waiter. Marcus did, saw the man in bow tie and white gloves balancing a tray of champagne flutes, saw the trajectory, saw the disaster coming. Lily, watch, too late. His daughter bumped into the waiter's leg. The tray tilted, 12 glasses of Dom Perignon, $800 per bottle, cascaded through the air in glittering arcs of destruction. They shattered across the marble floor like crystal bombs. The entire gala froze. 100 conversations died mid-sentence. All eyes turned to the maintenance man and his child, standing in a spreading pool of champagne and broken glass. Jesus Christ, the waiter exploded. Do you have any idea what you've done? That's $12,000 of, I'm sorry. Lily's voice cracked, tears already streaming. I didn't see. I'm sorry. Marcus dropped to his knees instantly, pulling his daughter behind him, already reaching for the rags in his cart. It's my fault. I'll clean it immediately. I'll pay for. Pay for it? A woman in a diamond necklace laughed from a nearby table. On a janitor's salary? He probably makes that in 3 months. Probably why his wife left him, her companion added, loud enough to carry. Probably couldn't provide. Marcus's hands stilled for just a moment. Then he continued cleaning, head down, absorbing the humiliation like he'd absorbed everything else. But Lily, brave, fierce Lily, stepped out from behind him. My papa is worth 100 of you, she shouted, her small voice carrying across the terrace. He works 2 jobs so I can go to school. He makes me breakfast every morning and helps with my homework and never misses a parent-teacher meeting, even when he's tired. You don't know anything. Lily, please. Marcus reached for her, but his daughter was a force of nature. And my mama didn't leave because of money. She left because... She couldn't finish, the tears came too hard. Enough. The voice cut through the chaos like absolute zero. Victoria Thorne had descended from the podium. She moved through the crowd with the kind of authority that made people unconsciously step back. When she reached Marcus and Lily, she turned to face the gala attendees, like a general addressing incompetent troops. $12,000, she said flatly. Bill it to my personal account. Jonathan, she gestured to her assistant. Transfer $15,000 to Mr. She looked at Marcus for the first time with something other than dismissal. Chen, he said quietly. Marcus Chen. Mr. Chen. $5,000 to cover the champagne. $10,000 for the emotional distress of watching this crowd behave like jackals. Miss Thorne, that's not necessary. I don't do things because they're necessary. I do them because they're correct. She turned back to the crowd. This child showed more courage in 30 seconds than most of you have demonstrated in your entire lives. If anyone has a problem with that, you can take it up with me directly. Silence. Absolute silence. Then Victoria did something that shocked everyone, including herself. She knelt down to Lily's eye level, her expensive gown pooling on the champagne-soaked floor. Your father, she said quietly, sounds like a good man. Don't ever apologize for defending good men. The world has too few of them. Lily stared at her, tears still streaming. You're crying too. Victoria's hand went to her cheek involuntarily. She was. A single tear tracked down her face, the first she'd allowed in public in 15 years. I suppose I am, Victoria said, sounding bewildered. Miss Thorne, we should, Jonathan, her assistant, tried to guide her away. I'm fine. But even as she said it, Victoria's hand went to her chest. Her breathing had changed, short, shallow, rapid. The terrace tilted. Suddenly the lights were too bright, the noise too loud, the air too thick. Victoria's vision narrowed to a tunnel. She was drowning on dry land, her heart hammering like it was trying to escape her ribcage. Panic attack. The word floated through her consciousness. Not now, not here, not in front of. Her knees buckled. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. Marcus Chen's hands. He lowered her carefully to a chair someone had rushed over, his fingers already on her wrist, checking her pulse. Miss Thorne, can you hear me? His voice had changed. All the deference, all the humility, gone. This was the voice of someone who commanded life and death. I need you to breathe with me. In, through your nose, 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out through your mouth for 4. Can you do that? Victoria tried to speak. Couldn't. Nodded. Good. Follow my count. 1, 2, 3, 4. His other hand was on her shoulder, grounding her. His eyes, she noticed for the first time, were deep brown, intelligent, infinitely calm. The eyes of someone who had seen crisis and transcended it. You're having a panic attack, Marcus continued, his voice steady as a heartbeat. It feels like dying, but you're not dying. Your body is lying to you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Keep breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slowly, agonizingly, the world came back into focus. Her heart rate slowed. The tunnel vision receded. She was breathing again, really breathing. There you are, Marcus said softly. You're okay. You're safe. Victoria looked around at the crowd staring at her. At Victoria Thorne, the Ice Queen, having a public meltdown, and something inside her shattered more completely than any champagne glass. Get me out of here, she whispered. Jonathan had cleared the Aurelia's penthouse suite in under 3 minutes. Now Victoria sat on a velvet sofa, still breathing carefully, while Marcus checked her vital signs with the calm competence of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. Lily sat nearby, quiet but watchful, holding a glass of water Victoria hadn't asked for, but found herself grateful for. "Your pulse is normal now," Marcus said, releasing her wrist. "But you should see a cardiologist. Panic attacks can be triggered by underlying—" "I know what they can be triggered by." Victoria's voice was hoarse. "I'm not an idiot. I never suggested you were." She looked at him properly for the first time. Really looked. The gray uniform couldn't hide the way he carried himself, the intelligence in his eyes, the steady hands that had just brought her back from the edge of drowning. "You're not really a janitor, are you?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I am now." "But before doesn't matter." "It matters to me." Victoria leaned forward. "Nobody handles a medical emergency like that without training. Extensive training. So I'll ask again. Who are you?" Lily piped up from her corner. "Papa was a doctor. A heart doctor for babies. He saved lots of kids." "Lily. But then something bad happened. And he couldn't be a doctor anymore. And we had to move. And Mama left. And," her voice broke, "and Papa said we don't talk about before." Marcus closed his eyes. The pain on his face was so raw that Victoria actually felt something crack inside her own chest. Empathy. That foreign, dangerous thing she'd locked away years ago. "I'm sorry," Victoria said, and meant it. "You don't have to." "Dr. Marcus Chen," he said quietly, as if confessing to a crime. "Pediatric cardiac surgeon. Johns Hopkins Medical Center. 7 years ago, I performed an emergency surgery on a 6-month-old girl. She had a congenital heart defect. The surgery was experimental, cutting edge. It was her only chance." He opened his eyes and Victoria saw the abyss in them. "She died on the table. The parents sued for malpractice. The hospital sided with them to avoid publicity. I lost my medical license, my reputation, my career. My marriage couldn't survive it. My wife Sarah blamed me for the financial ruin, for dragging our daughter through hell. She left us 18 months ago, sent divorce papers from California with a note that said she couldn't watch me self-destruct anymore." The silence in the room was cathedral deep. "The baby's name was Emma," Marcus continued. "I dream about her every night, about what I could have done differently, about the sound her mother made when I told them Emma was gone. That sound, it lives in my bones." Victoria found herself unable to breathe again. But this time it wasn't panic. It was the weight of recognizing another person's devastation and finding it mirror perfect to your own. "What are you doing at the Aurelia?" she asked. "Hiding, working, keeping my head down, making sure Lily has food and school and a father who doesn't completely fall apart." He smiled, but it was the saddest thing Victoria had ever seen. "Turns out you can be brilliant at saving lives and terrible at saving your own." Victoria stood, walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The city glittered below like a constellation of broken dreams and stolen chances. "My father built Apex Pharmaceuticals from nothing," she said. "He died when I was 16, heart attack at his desk, working on a drug trial that would have saved thousands of lives. He never saw it approved." She pressed her palm against the cold glass. "My mother remarried within a year, to my father's business partner. He tried to push me out of the company, said I was too young, too emotional, too female. So I became everything he said I couldn't be. Cold, ruthless, untouchable. I worked 100-hour weeks. I sacrificed every relationship, every friendship, every piece of myself that wasn't useful to the company." Victoria turned to face Marcus. 3 years ago, I became CEO. Last week, the board tried to remove me. They say I'm too aggressive, that I've damaged the company's image with my harsh management style. They want me to smile more, Be softer. Play the role they think a female CEO should play. Her hands clenched into fists. I built Apex into a $7 billion empire. I've saved more lives through drug development than you've seen in your entire surgical career. And they want me to smile more? So you're having panic attacks, Marcus said gently. So I'm having panic attacks. Victoria laughed, a bitter sound. The great Victoria Thorne, brought down by her own nervous system. Lily stood up and walked over to Victoria. Without asking permission, she took Victoria's hand. My papa has bad dreams, Lily said. He wakes up crying sometimes. He thinks I don't hear. But I do. And when I hear him crying, I'm scared. But then morning comes, and he makes me pancakes and helps me with homework. And I remember that sad people can still be good papas. She looked up at Victoria with those impossibly wise 7-year-old eyes. Maybe sad people can still be good at their jobs too. Victoria stared down at this child, holding her hand. This child she'd met an hour ago. This child who somehow understood her better than anyone had in years, and felt something inside her chest give way. Not breaking, softening. She knelt down again, heedless of her gown, and looked Lily in the eye. You're right, Victoria whispered. Thank you for reminding me. I need your help, Victoria said, turning back to Marcus. He raised an eyebrow. I'm a janitor. You're a surgeon who saved my life tonight. And I think, she paused, calculating. I think we can save each other. I'm listening. Apex is launching a new pediatric cardiac drug in 3 weeks. It's the culmination of 15 years of research. If it succeeds, it will save thousands of children like the one you lost. If it fails, the board will use it as ammunition to remove me. Victoria began to pace, her mind clicking into strategic mode. But the drug trials have been complicated. We need someone who understands pediatric cardiology at the highest level to review the data, find the weaknesses, shore up our defense. Someone brilliant, someone who has nothing to lose. Someone like me, Marcus said slowly. I'll pay you $100,000 for 2 weeks of consultation. Enough to hire a lawyer and petition to have your medical license reinstated. Enough to give Lily the stability she deserves. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. Why would you do this? Because you remind me that brilliant people make mistakes and survive them. Because your daughter is the first person in years to speak to me like I'm human. Because, Victoria's voice caught, because I'm tired of being alone in my fortress. She met his eyes. And because something tells me you're tired of hiding. 3 days later, Marcus Chen walked through Apex Pharmaceuticals' research headquarters with a visitor badge that felt like a small piece of his identity returning. Victoria had set him up in a private office. Officially, he was a data analysis consultant with access to 15 years of cardiac drug research. Lily was in Apex's company daycare, a facility so state-of-the-art it made her regular school look like a prison. She'd hugged Marcus goodbye that morning with a smile that nearly broke his heart. Papa's going to be a doctor again? She'd asked. Papa's going to help doctors, he'd said carefully. It's not the same thing. But his hands were shaking as he opened the first research file. The drug was called Cardiolite 6, designed to repair congenital heart defects in infants through targeted molecular regeneration. On paper, it was revolutionary. In practice, Marcus's eyes widened as he reviewed the clinical trial data. This is wrong, he muttered. The phase 2 dosages are too aggressive for the infant population. They're going to see cardiac arrhythmias in at least 15% of patients. This will fail FDA approval. He was still scribbling notes when Victoria walked in. Tell me, Victoria said, closing the door behind her. For the next 2 hours, Marcus walked her through the problems with Cardiolite 6. He spoke with the passion of someone who'd spent years in exile from the work he loved, his hands moving as he sketched molecular structures and cardiac response curves on the whiteboard. Victoria watched him transform. The janitor disappeared. The broken surgeon disappeared. This was Dr. Marcus Chen in his element, brilliant, precise, alive. If you adjust the dosage protocol here, Marcus concluded, and add a secondary monitoring phase here, you can reduce the adverse events by 60%. It delays your launch by 6 weeks, but it saves the drug. And more importantly, it saves the children who'll receive it. Victoria studied the whiteboard, her mind already running through the financial and political implications. 6 weeks is a lifetime in pharma. The board will say I'm being overcautious. They'll say it's proof I can't make hard decisions under pressure. Then they're idiots, Marcus said flatly. Because the hard decision is sacrificing 6 weeks to do it right. The easy decision is rushing to market and killing kids. Victoria smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. You sound like me. I sound like someone who remembers what we're supposed to be doing. We are not here to make money. We are here to save lives. The money is just the byproduct. Something in Victoria's expression shifted. For the first time since her father died, someone understood. Someone spoke her language. Someone cared about the same things she cared about, beneath all the corporate armor. I'm going to recommend the changes to the board, she said. I'm going to need you there to present the data. Victoria, I can't. I'm not allowed to practice medicine. If anyone finds out who I am. You're not practicing medicine. You're analyzing data. There's a difference. She held his gaze. But I won't force you. I know what it costs to step back into the arena. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, when's the meeting? Tomorrow. 2 p.m. I'll be there. That evening, Victoria found herself in an unusual position, having dinner with other people. Marcus had picked up Lily from daycare, and somehow, Victoria wasn't entirely sure how it had happened. They'd all ended up at a small Thai restaurant near the Apex building. Nothing fancy, the kind of place Victoria normally wouldn't notice existed. Lily was explaining her art project, something involving glitter, construction paper, and what appeared to be a unicorn, with the kind of enthusiasm that made everything seem like the most important thing in the world. And then Mrs. Rodriguez said mine was the most creative, but I think Tommy's was better because he added googly eyes, and googly eyes make everything better. Victoria found herself actually listening, more than that, caring. Your teacher sounds wise, Victoria said. Googly eyes are an underutilized artistic tool. Lily giggled. You're funny when you try. I'm not trying to be funny. That's why it's funny. Marcus was watching this exchange with something like wonder. Victoria caught his eye and felt heat rise to her cheeks, a sensation she hadn't experienced since college. What? She asked defensively. Nothing. Just, you're good with her. I'm not good with anyone. You're good with her, Marcus repeated firmly, and whether you admit it or not, you're good with me too. Victoria didn't know what to say to that, so she focused on her pad thai. But her hand was trembling slightly, and Marcus noticed. He always noticed. Thank you, she said quietly, for seeing me. Thank you, Marcus replied, for reminding me I'm still a doctor. Lily, oblivious to the emotional undercurrents, announced, I think you should be friends. Papa needs friends. He's lonely. Lily. Marcus started, mortified. And Miss? Victoria needs friends too. She's even lonelier. Victoria and Marcus looked at each other across the table. Slowly, Victoria extended her hand. Friends, she said, for Lily's sake. Marcus shook her hand, his grip warm and steady, for Lily's sake. But they both knew it was for more than that. The Apex conference room was designed to intimidate. 40-foot ceilings, wall-to-wall windows, a marble table that could seat 30 board members in leather chairs that cost more than Marcus's annual salary. Victoria stood at the head of the table, Marcus beside her with his presentation queued up. The board filtered in. 12 men and 3 women, average age 62, combined net worth roughly equivalent to a small nation's GDP. Richard Castellan, the board chairman and Victoria's stepfather, took his seat last. He was silver-haired, distinguished, and regarded Victoria with the kind of disdain usually reserved for something discovered on the bottom of one's shoe. "Victoria," he said with false warmth, "I hope this emergency meeting has a legitimate purpose. We're all very busy. I'm recommending we delay the Cardiolite 6 launch by 6 weeks," Victoria said without preamble. "Chen has identified critical dosage issues that could result in adverse cardiac events in the pediatric population." The room erupted. "Delay? We've invested $700 million. Our competitors are 3 months from launching their alternative. This is exactly the kind of overcautious." "Enough." Victoria's voice cut through the chaos. "Dr. Chen, present your findings." Marcus stepped forward. Despite his nerves, despite everything, his voice was steady as he walked the board through the molecular data, the clinical trial results, the projected outcomes. "If you launch now," he concluded, "you'll be looking at a 15% adverse event rate. That's 1 in 7 children experiencing potentially life-threatening complications. Delay, adjust, and you reduce that to 3%. Which number can you live with?" The silence was heavy. Then Richard Castellan began to clap, slowly, mockingly. "Wonderful presentation, Dr. Chen. Or should I say Dr. Marcus Chen, formerly of Johns Hopkins, the surgeon who killed a baby and lost his license." Marcus's blood turned to ice. Victoria's face went pale. "Yes," Richard continued, smiling like a shark. "We know who you are. Did you really think we wouldn't investigate Victoria's sudden consultant? Did you really think we'd take medical advice from a disgraced doctor who can't even hold a scalpel without shaking?" "How did you?" Victoria started. "Jonathan." Richard gestured to Victoria's assistant, who stepped into the room with a wide expression of smug satisfaction. "He's been keeping me informed of your activities. All of them." Jonathan, her assistant of 5 years. Marcus saw Victoria's face crack just for a moment, before the ice reformed. "You son of a bitch," Victoria whispered. "I'm protecting this company from your father's sentimental daughter," Richard snapped. "You've been spiraling for months, panic attacks, emotional outbursts. And now you're taking medical advice from a man who committed malpractice? The board has no choice." He stood, addressing the room. "I'm calling for an emergency vote. Victoria Thorne is unfit to serve as CEO of Apex Pharmaceuticals. All in favor of her immediate removal." "Wait," Marcus's voice cut through the tension. "Before you vote, there's something you should know." He pulled out his phone, connected it to the conference room display. A document appeared on the screen. "For the past 3 days," Marcus said calmly, "I've been analyzing Apex's cardiac drug data. All of it, not just Cardiolite 6. And I found something interesting in your financial records." The display changed. Bank transfers, shell companies, offshore accounts. Richard Castellan has been systematically embezzling funds from Apex's research budget for 4 years. Roughly $40 million, funneled through fake clinical trials and phantom consulting fees. That's why Cardiolite 6's trials have been underfunded and rushed. That's why the dosing is wrong. The room exploded again, but this time with shock aimed at Richard. "He's lying," Richard shouted. "This is fabricated." "I'm a data analyst now," Marcus said quietly. "I spent the last 24 hours tracking every suspicious transaction. It's all there. Victoria, you should probably call your lawyers." Victoria was staring at Marcus with something like awe. "How did you?" "I'm good with patterns," Marcus said, "and I got suspicious when I saw how underfunded your trials were for a company your size. So I looked deeper. Your stepfather has been stealing from the company your father built. From the children your drugs are supposed to save." Security escorted Richard Castellan from the building 30 minutes later. The board, in a hasty vote, unanimously reaffirmed Victoria as CEO and approved the 6-week delay for Cardiolite 6. Jonathan was fired on the spot. Victoria stood in her office afterward, looking out at the city, her hands shaking. Marcus entered quietly. "You okay?" "I trusted him," Victoria said. "Richard, Jonathan. I trusted them both." "I know. I'm supposed to be smarter than this. I'm supposed to see betrayal coming." Marcus stepped beside her at the window. "You can't armor yourself against everything. Sometimes people you trust will hurt you. That doesn't mean you were wrong to trust them. It means they were wrong to abuse it." Victoria turned to look at him, and Marcus saw tears streaming down her face. Real tears, not the single perfect tear from the gala, but ugly, broken, human tears. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be vulnerable. I don't know how to let people in. I built my fortress so well that I trapped myself inside it." "Then let me show you," Marcus said softly. "Let me show you that it's okay to be human, that it's okay to need help, that it's okay to feel things." He reached up and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "You saved me 3 days ago," he said. "When you defended Lily, when you paid for the champagne, when you gave me a chance to be a doctor again, you pulled me out of hiding. Let me return the favor." Victoria leaned into his touch, just for a moment. Then she straightened, wiped her eyes, and did something she hadn't done in years. She laughed. Really laughed, full and free, and startled by her own joy. "Friends," she said, echoing their restaurant agreement. "Friends," Marcus agreed. But the way he was looking at her suggested friendship was only the beginning. The FDA approved Cardiolite 6 with the revised protocol. Adverse event rate, 2.8%, better than Marcus's projections. Victoria stood in Apex's press conference room, facing a sea of reporters. But this time, something was different. She smiled. Not the practiced corporate smile she'd perfected over years, but something real. "Today marks a milestone for Apex Pharmaceuticals," she said. "But more importantly, it marks a milestone for the thousands of children who will benefit from Cardiolite 6. This drug represents not just scientific innovation, but something my father believed in deeply. The idea that medicine is about people, not profits." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "I also want to acknowledge Dr. Marcus Chen, whose brilliant analysis saved this drug and potentially hundreds of young lives." Dr. Chen lost his medical license 7 years ago due to circumstances beyond his control. I'm proud to announce that Apex Pharmaceuticals is funding his legal petition for license reinstatement, and he'll be joining our research division as chief medical consultant. In the back of the room, Marcus stood with Lily in his arms. His daughter squeezed his neck. "Papa, you're crying again," she whispered. "Happy tears. This time, sweetheart. Happy tears." 1 week later, Victoria met Marcus and Lily in Central Park. She'd never been to Central Park, not really, had driven through it, seen it from penthouses, but never actually walked in it like a normal human being. Lily ran ahead to the playground, leaving the 2 adults on a bench beneath a oak tree, I got word from the medical board, Marcus said quietly. The reinstatement hearing is scheduled for next month. They're willing to consider my petition based on my work with Apex. You're going to get your license back, Victoria said with certainty. Maybe. Probably. He looked at her. But I'm not sure I want to go back to surgery. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Why not? Because I've spent the last month doing research, data analysis, drug development. Saving one child at a time is beautiful, but saving thousands through pharmaceutical innovation, that's something else. He smiled. Besides, I have a boss who's teaching me that it's okay to be human. I'd hate to leave that job. Victoria felt warmth spread through her chest. Actual warmth. The kind she'd thought she'd lost the capacity for. For what it's worth, she said. You're teaching me the same thing. Teaching me that strength doesn't mean being alone. That asking for help isn't weakness. That letting people in doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you human. She reached over and took his hand. Marcus's fingers intertwined with hers. Steady and strong. I'm still figuring this out, Victoria admitted. The whole feeling things, being open, trusting people. I'm going to continue. Mess it up sometimes. So am I, Marcus said. I still wake up with nightmares. I still doubt myself. I still worry I'm going to fail Lily. Then we'll mess it up together. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily climb the jungle gym with fearless determination. She asked me this morning if you could come to her school play, Marcus said. She's playing a tree in the forest of feelings, whatever that is. She specifically wants you there. Victoria's throat tightened. She wants me there? She said, and I quote, Miss, Victoria understands feelings now, so she needs to see the forest of feelings. I think she's concerned about your emotional education. Victoria laughed, that real laugh she was still learning to access. Tell her I'll be there, front row. The elementary school auditorium was packed with parents, holding phones and cameras. Victoria Thorne, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of Armani armor, sat in the front row next to Marcus. Lily, dressed as a tree with brown construction paper and what appeared to be 75 cotton balls glued to her arms, delivered her single line with devastating sincerity. Even the trees have feelings. We just grow them slowly. The audience applauded. Victoria found herself clapping louder than anyone, her eyes wet with tears she didn't bother hiding. After the show, Lily ran to them both, throwing her arms around Victoria's legs. Did you like it? Did you see me? I didn't forget my line. Victoria knelt down, pulling Lily into a proper hug. You are magnificent, a star. Papa says you're going to have dinner with us every Wednesday now, Lily said hopefully. Victoria glanced at Marcus, who shrugged with a smile. I may have mentioned that. I think, Victoria said carefully, looking at both of them, that Wednesday dinners sound perfect. Marcus's medical license was reinstated with a formal apology from the board. The baby's parents, after learning the full circumstances of their daughter's case, dropped the malpractice judgment and issued a public statement supporting his reinstatement. He declined several surgical positions to stay at Apex as chief medical consultant. Victoria's board approved a new company initiative, the Emma Chen Memorial Fund for Pediatric Cardiac Research, named for the baby Marcus had lost. It would fund breakthrough research and support families who couldn't afford treatment. On the day the fund was announced, Marcus stood in Victoria's office, looking at the press release. His hands were shaking. You didn't have to do this, he said, his voice thick. Yes, I did. Victoria moved to stand beside him. That little girl's life mattered. Your pain matters. and I want her legacy to be about saving other children, not destroying good doctors." Marcus turned to face her. They were standing very close now, close enough that Victoria could count the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "I'm falling in love with you," Marcus said quietly. "I don't know if that's allowed. I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm done hiding how I feel." Victoria's heart, that organ she'd kept frozen for so long, cracked wide open. "It's terrifying," she whispered. "Letting someone in. Trusting someone with the parts of me I've kept locked away." "I know, I'm terrified too. But I think," Victoria took a breath, "I think I'm falling in love with you too. And I think Lily is the wisest person either of us has ever met. And I think maybe, just maybe, we could try this together." Marcus smiled, really smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. "Together," he agreed. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted like hope and healing and second chances. 6 months later, the Chen Thorne family, as they'd come to be known around Apex, attended the opening of the Emma Chen Memorial Pediatric Cardiac Center, a state-of-the-art facility funded by Apex Pharmaceuticals and designed by Dr. Marcus Chen. Lily, now 8, cut the ribbon with Victoria and Marcus on either side of her. The press took 1,000 photos of the unusual family. The former Ice Queen CEO, the redeemed surgeon, and the bright-eyed daughter who had brought them together. That evening, in the penthouse suite where they'd first truly met, Victoria and Marcus stood on the balcony watching the city lights. "I never thought I'd be here," Victoria said. "Happy, in love, part of a family." "I never thought I'd practice medicine again," Marcus replied. "Never thought I'd forgive myself. Never thought I'd find someone who understood." Lily was inside, asleep on the couch, exhausted from the day's excitement. A blanket was tucked around her, a stuffed unicorn clutched in her arms. "She's going to want siblings eventually," Victoria said thoughtfully. Marcus looked at her in surprise. Is that something you'd want?" "I don't know. Maybe. Eventually." Victoria smiled. "I'm still learning how to be part of this family. But I like learning, and I like who I'm learning with." Marcus pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "One day at a time." "One day at a time," Victoria agreed. The Aurelia Hotel rooftop terrace hosted another charity gala, but this time Dr. Marcus Chen attended as a keynote speaker, not a janitor. Victoria Thorne Chen, she'd kept both names, a compromise that felt right, sat in the front row with 9-year-old Lily beside her. And in Victoria's arms, sleeping peacefully despite the crowd noise, was 3-month-old Emma Sarah Chen, named for the baby Marcus had lost and the wife who had left, transforming both ghosts into a new beginning. Marcus spoke about second chances, about the importance of compassion in medicine, about the danger of defining people by their worst moments. 7 years ago, he said, I made a mistake that cost a child her life. That mistake nearly cost me my life too. I hid. I ran. I buried myself in shame and self-hatred. He looked at Victoria, at Lily, at baby Emma. But 3 extraordinary women taught me that mistakes don't define us, that healing is possible, that love, real, frightening, transformative love, can rebuild what we thought was permanently broken. The audience applauded, but Marcus was looking only at his family. Victoria stood, Emma in her arms, and walked to the podium. She'd never done this before. Never shown affection in public. Never let the world see her as anything but ice. She kissed Marcus in front of 500 people. And she didn't care who saw. Because Victoria Thorne Chen had learned something more valuable than corporate strategy or pharmaceutical innovation, or quarterly profits. She'd learned that being human, messy, vulnerable, imperfect, loving, was the greatest strength of all. Lily tugged on both their hands. "Can we go home now? Emma's probably hungry, and I have a science project due tomorrow, and we're supposed to be a family, not fancy people at fancy parties." Victoria and Marcus looked at each other and laughed. "Yes," Victoria said, taking her daughter's hand. "Let's go home."